Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Hamad. He is an IT and operations leader, and he blends cutting edge technical expertise with a truly people first approach. And he has a rich background in enterprise technology and SaaS, and he has driven transformational growth from early to mid stage organizations. Welcome to the show, Musa.
Thank you, AJ. Appreciate you having me today.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Musa. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about people first leadership in tech. So we'll talk about this. But first, Musa, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Absolutely. My kind of career elevator pitch, so to speak. Well, first, I would say I'm a father to a 7-year-old daughter. And I always say that becoming a father has made me a better leader and just a better human being in general. Beyond that, I started in tech 20 years ago. No degree, no formal education or background, just started on a help desk, fixing printers and going desk side, and learned very quickly that the most important thing about technology is the customer service that you provide. Anybody can fix an issue with a piece of technology, but if you do it in a way that allows people to feel good, feel like they can approach you with their problems, has really been big for me. From the help desk, I transitioned and I've actually done tech support for high net worth individuals. So Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, was somebody that I supported for a while. And then from there kind of deviated into management because chasing a billionaire around the globe got pretty tiring after a while. And I've been fortunate enough to build a couple of teams from the ground up and then rebuild a couple of teams as well at various companies along the way, from consultancies to SaaS companies to media companies. So that's kind of a little bit of my background.
Absolutely, absolutely, Musa. So let's understand about this people first approach of yours. What is this people first approach of yours? Because in a time like this, the help desk job you started with, perhaps will not be seeing that, and some AI will be sitting down there, and even on the tech support part, very soon we might see that. But be that as it may, I want to understand the people first approach of yours.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing that I learned is there's a reason for everything that people do. So if you have somebody on your team who's high performing or low performing, there's a reason why that's happening for them in a moment. Understanding and accepting that humans are not AI. So they are not just going to consistently show up and be perfect for you and flawless for you. And you have to accept those ups and downs of humans and kind of work around them. And I think the other thing that I would say has been really kind of driven me and guided me is the idea that instead of trying to force people to be who you need them to be, you kind of pivot that and you build the team around their strengths, and you find people that you can bring together who have offsetting strengths and weaknesses so that the team as a whole can be cohesive and strong, even if you have an individual who's weak in one area or another. Ultimately, it's about getting to know your folks, understanding them, meeting them where they are. You know, I have a really good example of this. I had an individual on my team a while back who all of a sudden just started showing up late every day. And everybody was getting frustrated with this individual. And I finally sat down, had a conversation, and you come to learn that this person has a lot happening in their personal life. So you work with them to put a plan, reminding them that, hey, look, we all have things happening in our personal life, but you've got to show up for your job. Your teammates are counting on you. What can we do to help you feel supported so that you can show up for us? And so I think ultimately, look, AI is going to be great. In a lot of ways, that help desk job that I had, well, for me, AI can't go desk side yet. Elon hasn't had his way fully, but eventually, it is definitely that agentic quality of it's going to eliminate a lot of that back and forth initially, and it will reduce the need for headcount. And so we do have to remember, though, that those individuals on the front lines are providing a level of empathy and support that AI will never be able to apply.
Absolutely, Musa. So let's understand it better. How has this helped you, this approach, people first in tech approach, help you in your own life, in career, in terms of even in personal life, if it has looked at it from your, from around your society, Just want to understand how it has impacted positively to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy thing to kind of point to is 20 years ago, I was a tier one help desk tech. And my latest job, I was a vice president of technology and procurement. And so I think it's very clear that my career trajectory shows that putting people first, allowing them to succeed, leads to my own success. I think a lot of leaders want control over every element of what their team is doing, and they want influence and say, and they're actually holding themselves back. I had a mentor very early on that kind of taught me. He said, if you start with a team and you join a team, your goal should be to make the functions of that team run state. Because if you do that correctly, then, and you trust your people to do that work, you're then freed up to do bigger work. You're freed up to go explore other areas of the business or offer support in areas that maybe your boss didn't think you could, but because you have the bandwidth, because of the trust you put in your people, you're able to shine in other areas. And so I call it a little bit, it's the term leadership on a me first basis. I didn't come up with that. Somebody else did, but I've stolen it from her. And so it's the idea that putting them first in terms of trust allowed me to become a better version of myself because I wasn't bogged down in those little details.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, people first, uh, who is this people first for? Is it for some people who are very close to the leaders, or is it for only the management? People
Yeah,
first means I take care of you and you take care of me. Is that
sure.
people first? How do you integrate these people first in organizations?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really great point that you bring up because certainly when you're at a certain level in a business, you have influence up and down, right? And the person above you and the person below you, and then your peers. One of the things that I learned early on in my career from a company that I worked with is the idea of the skip level meeting. And so a skip level meeting allows the folks that are deeper within the organization that I'm a part of to have access to me so that we have conversations and get to know each other. And when you approach those conversations with the skip levels, with those folks on the front line, you're not sitting there focused on reviewing their tickets or reviewing their projects or anything like that. You're getting to know them as humans. And along the way, as you do that, you also then begin to see how their humanity and who they are as individuals weaves in and influences the work that they do. So I think the answer to that question of how we as leaders go beyond just other managers and the C-suite and everything like that is to be willing to have the conversation. A skip level meeting with somebody once a quarter for 30 minutes who's on the front lines with their vice president completely changes their perspective, and it changes their view on how their leader views them, and they feel valued.
Of course, of course. But you see, Musa, since the last 20 years almost, more than that, people and all these great thought leaders, they've been talking about people, 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 till the great resignation happened. The quiet quitting is still very much on. So why is it? Because they were really talking and talking until it has reached now AI first. You see the state of the IT sector, you see the big tech, you see the FANG companies, whatever you want to ways you want to see So in this thing, do you think it is relevant still talking about people first in this age and times? Who is this for?
Yeah, I think we're falling short. I genuinely do. I think a lot of leaders across multiple businesses are falling short. One of my favorite phrases is attitude reflects leadership. And unfortunately, the leaders of our society, the leaders of tech, the Elon Musks of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs, Benioff, all these guys that have the ability to influence, they're putting profits above people. And so unfortunately, that mindset of people first really is in a very small minority of individuals. But those individuals that lean into that mindset, I believe, still experience a high level of success. For folks who come from that old school way of thinking, Jack Welch with GE, when he would do his layoff, the bottom 10% every quarter back in the 80s, they're going to be successful, right? If you focus on the P&L, if you focus on the money, and you do it in a way where you're willing to let go of the humanity and not worry about the human touch, you're going to experience success on paper. But how does that feel in terms of what you've done to develop kind of that next generation of leaders? How does that look in terms of the level of empathy and kindness that lives within your org? And the fact is, some people care about it and some people don't. you have great leaders and thought leaders like Simon Sinek, who talks about this type of stuff quite a bit. He's wildly popular on social media, on LinkedIn. He's published books. But the truth is, for as popular as he is, I don't feel like we're seeing as much of his influence. So while people can read the words and talk the talk, I think it's a very different mindset to walk the walk of people first leadership. And to answer your question, no, we're falling short, unfortunately, overall as a society within tech, however you want to look at it. We're not doing as much of the people first mindset as we can and should be.
So does it occur to you sometimes that you are wasting your time talking about this thing in a time like this?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think no, because I'm living proof that mindset does work. And I think if we even reach one person who stops and thinks, oh, I've got this employee who keeps showing up late, maybe they're not just lazy, maybe there's something else that's going on, then we've made a difference in two people's lives. And so you and I spending this time together to talk about this, feeling like we're shouting into the void about this idea of people first, we have to remember that there's a chance that we influence that one leader, that one manager that can make a difference in several people's lives.
Absolutely. I totally understand where you are coming from, the right sort of feeling, and that is what the world needs. But in terms of the type of leaders that we have, some of these leaders, which has led to this great resignation, toxic workplaces, amidst all these things, what is it that that they can do or other organizations can do in this? Do you think first they need to build trust for their organization, for the leadership that they have? A whole lot of overhaul is needed. A lot of reset is needed. Where should they start for those people who really want to go this path of people first leadership?
This will go along with the idea of trust, but what I actually like to focus on is empowerment. One of the things that I've talked about with empowering our teams, anytime I've joined a company or started or been a part of it, been asked to join a team and help lead it, one of the things that I've observed and learned, not everybody, but within that team, there are people that actually know what they're doing and they have great ideas and there's things they want to influence positive change and outcome. And so what can organizations or individuals in those positions do? I think it's empower their people. Now that comes with trust, right? Empowerment means you're going to trust them to go out and do the work. And that, for folks who have been so accustomed to controlling every element of their teams and what they do, man, that's much easier said than done, of course. But if they don't start, that's why you have these executives that brag about working 16-hour days. They're doing that because they're wanting to understand every little nuance and thing about what's going on. I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I'm leading a team and somebody comes to me to ask me a question, I am not going to know every answer to everything that everyone on my team is doing. If I tried to do that, I'd be exhausted. And then I'd probably be a pretty difficult leader and human being to be around because I'd be so tired. But as a leader, you have to develop the humility to look at somebody and say, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but John on my team does. I'm going to go ask him and I'll be right back. Or better yet, let me bring John into this conversation because I trust him to talk about this idea. Even though you're my CEO, I trust him to talk about this idea and concept with you because he is the subject matter expert within our organization. And so I think leaders have to let go a little bit, loosen their grip on the business and what they're doing, and trust that they have good people within their team. And ultimately, most people want to do a good job. They just need to be given the space to do that. And I think that's, again, an area where today's leaders who operate in that old school must control and know everything mindset, they've lost sight of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But let's for a moment look at it from the leader's point of view. Many people say, I've got so much of things on my plate, I need to look at things. And so I've looked at organizational goals. How do I look at other things during all these things? So how do you calibrate the organizational goals with, this people first approach within the organization?
This is probably going to be wildly unpopular, what I'm about to say, but I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about organizational planning. And, companies talk about 1, 3, and 5 year plans, right? Like that's just kind of the mindset we have. I think planning for the future in today's business environment is a fool's errand. And any executive that's spending a lot of their time doing that organizational planning, everything on the 3 and 5 years out, candidly, they're wasting their time. Let's be realistic. Really, organizational planning for a business of most scale, 6, 12, and 18 months. Right? Because how often does any company actually bring a 5-year plan to fruition? There's always going to be pivots. There's always going to be changes. And I think one area where leaders end up spinning their wheels a lot and spending a lot of time is doing this longer term planning. And then 6 months in, there's an acquisition, or there's you've been acquired, or you acquired a new business, or all of a sudden you're shutting down a business unit. So that 5-year plan that you did has now just been turned on its ear. So if leaders, I think, would focus more on the present and then that near term that's coming in front of them, and not try to look beyond and plan and worry about that, I think that would create some space for them to be able to have those conversations with their teammates. And I'll add one more thing on this. I think also that leaders have to be willing to accept failure. And I think we've lost sight of that in today's environment. Leaders are so fixated on everything being perfect and everything being successful that, again, to your point, that requires a lot of mental energy and bandwidth. Perfection is exhausting, right? But let's be realistic. How often does something go to plan, or how often is something perfect? The mark of a good leader is a leader that's built a team that can pivot and adapt quickly, and a leader who will say, hey, you know what? We missed the mark here. We messed up. We're going to pivot. We're going to make this happen, and we're going to move forward. But over planning is a large part of where I think a lot of leaders spend unnecessary mental headspace.
Absolutely, absolutely. Musa, you say that, becoming a father, it has impacted you positively and it has changed your leadership approach. So a lot of leaders are also parents. Why has it impacted you, father, and not so many others?
Yeah. I mean, this will be another thing that some folks may bristle at a little bit, but becoming a father caused me to really evaluate my mental health and my mental health journey. And I think a lot of folks don't do the level of introspection where they will look themselves in a mirror and have a conversation about where they fall short, where they can get better, and the things that they do to impact the world around them in a negative way. And so, to your point, not everybody that instantly becomes a parent has this mind shift or whatever. It takes work, and it takes time, and it takes a recognition within yourself that you want to be better, not only for your child, but for everybody that you encounter. Having that empathy and kindness for everybody you work with, the clerk at the grocery store, the person that is at the red stoplight that turned green and they're not moving, right? That level of awareness of the world, and that everybody has things happening in their lives, started with having a child, but also being willing to embark on the journey of internal dialogue and internal introspection and mental health.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do you see this whole future of people amidst all this AI itself within organizations? Do you think there will be a time when we'll be talking about people, or we will be talking about, mental health of AI itself? How do you see this?
It's I'll say a couple of things on that. First, one of the terms that I've thrown out a lot as we think about AI and how it's influencing work today is we're going to go from on the front lines and kind of that next tier up of management and leadership that are on the front lines of the business. We're going to go from being doers to orchestrators, right? You're going to, instead of having 10 people doing various aspects of a job, we're going to get to a point now where we can have 3 people that are overseeing AI doing those 10 people's, jobs. Now, a lot of people would be afraid to hear that and say, oh, well, my job is going away. But I think if businesses are smart, they're going to recognize that they can reinvest that human capital into other areas of the business that will equally, or not equally rather, but even more so facilitate growth. It's going to require folks to get past button pushing, right? We have so many people in today's society that have just gotten used to doing this function of lather, rinse, repeat, and doing the same job. We talk about white collar, we talk about blue collar, but we've created, especially in technology in the SaaS world, we've created kind of this gray collar worker who does the same thing over and over again. They just happen to do it in front of a computer. And so people are going to become orchestrators, not as much folks that execute and press the buttons. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would lean on to say there.
Right. So are you optimistic towards the future? Do you think the young generation, it is much more understanding of things? They will force leaders to become much more, people centric with the going time, because they are not going to, they want much more experience, experiments in life. They will not just join any organization just for the sake of money. They know what they want.
Yeah, I think we have to be optimistic about the future, or what's the point, right? And so I see the younger generation, and I'll acknowledge and admit that there was a time over the last couple of years where I was that, oh, they're lazy, they're this, they're that. But they have a different level of what they want out of life and their careers. A lot of folks that are in that younger generation, and I think now I put myself in the same bucket. I need fulfillment out of what I do. I don't just need a paycheck anymore. And so you hear about the folks that are quiet quitting, the people that stay in the business and just give the minimum because in their minds, well, I'm not getting anything from my boss. Why should I give anything to them, kind of thing. I'm optimistic about the future because I think AI is a force multiplier in terms of work. And I'm optimistic about the future because I think that next generation coming up is much more inclined to tap into that introspection and be aware of the world around them. We just have to work with that generation to kind of understand that you can't be so immersed and weighed down by the world around you that you're not able to move forward and get things done.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Musa. My understanding is that the young generation, when they mean fulfillment, they don't mean fulfillment stores, but fulfillment in another sense, in the real
Exactly.
sense.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. There's so much to learn about these things, Musa, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, what you are doing nowadays, and also, want to engage with you professionally if possible. What's the best way for them to do so?
Right now it's LinkedIn. In 2018, as a part of my journey, I disabled all other social media. So I'm starting to kind of examine and re-explore what getting back out there looks like. But you can certainly track me down on LinkedIn, Mousa Hamad. I think my name's going to be, in the description. And I'm always happy to have a conversation, engage, talk about business problems, talk about how real world problems impact your business problems or anything else.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.